Hi everyone, my name is Richard Rice. I'm a PGA professional and golf instructor. The point of today's video is to teach you how to transition from backswing to downswing. Learning the mechanics of the transition is really going to help you understand where to focus your mind and ultimately help you hit longer, straighter shots towards your target. Before we really dive into the meat of this discussion, I want to make sure that you understand mechanically what's happening in the transition at the top of the backswing. One of the most common misconceptions is that all of our pressure should move to the front foot right at the top of the swing. And what inevitably happens is that people move their pressure too far forward too soon. They've got nowhere to go and they start actually moving away from the target in the downswing. Force plate technology has really shown us that, at the top of the swing, we loaded maybe 80 to 90% of our weight onto the back leg, and that it slowly transitions forward. And for most athletes, this happens quite naturally in the downswing. So the right leg does a lot to help support our downswing, and a lot of people don't understand that, and I see collapsing right legs. And in the end, again, it's making your weight move away from the target in the downswing, and it's causing a lack of power, a lack of consistency in the bottom of your swing arc, and a lack of directional control in the end. So we also noticed that many of the better players work the club down in what I would call a shallow motion versus a steep motion. So this would look like a shallow motion where you can see the shaft working in this direction on the way down. We do this move in other sports, baseball. Right? The bat shallows as we swing through. In golf, it becomes a little less intuitive and a little bit harder because the ball's on the ground, we're on the side of it, and we're not sure how to get that golf club down to the ground. So I see a lot of people working this club down in a steep motion instead of a shallow motion. So what I'd like is for that to become a very natural feel for you, but we're going to work on how to feel that in your transition. So the third thing we notice in better players is that the energy transfer in transition really begins in the core muscles. In the higher handicap players, we see the energy transfer come from the hands, so they're pulling on the shaft with their hands and arms for the worst players. The better players are engaging their core, they're using the ground to start to turn their body in transition. Well, let's look at what that does to the club shaft. So if I start to swing down and I pull down on the club shaft, right, that club starts to work down in a steep manner. If I start to, from the top, transition using my core muscles and turning my body, you can see that club start to transition in a more shallow manner. So simply learning to use your core, use the ground in transition is really going to help you work that club down a lot more shallowly, and you're going to have some more consistency in your ball striking. Again, this is a motion that we use in other sports, this feeling of the core initiating the transfer of motion. If I were to pick up a golf ball and simply throw it, so we do this in baseball, right? The first thing I do is I start to turn my body towards my target, right? I don't throw from my back foot and just throw my arm towards the target, and that's what many of you are doing with your golf clubs. You're kind of throwing it from your back foot and it's causing a lack of power. Now I know what you're thinking, this is a lot of information. How do I apply it? So number one, the first thing I want you to do is pick up a golf ball out of your range bucket and start to throw it towards the target. I want you to feel how your core naturally starts to engage, how you're using the ground to turn your body towards your target and throw your ball. If that does not happen naturally, I do recommend that you work on this. Working on this motion in other sports can really help you transfer the process over to the golf swing and help you understand how to swing the club a little bit better. Once you're feeling confident about your throw, right, so our throwing motion, we're turning the body and we're firing towards the target. I want you to pick up your golf club and I want you to flip it over. You're going to hold it right here by the hosel. Okay? So I'm going to hold this in my dominant hand, which is my right hand, and all I'm going to do is try to make a throwing motion towards my target in a sidearm fashion. So that should look like this. You can see I'm making the same motion that I was making with my throw, but instead I'm making it on the side of my body here. All right, once you feel confident in that, I want you to switch to your lead hand and start to make that same motion, feeling like you're throwing the club towards the target with your lead hand. Your body should be doing that same motion. I feel my core engaging, my core is turning, my left foot is helping turn my body towards the target so that I can fling some energy out in the direction of my target. So after you've done both your trail hand and your lead hand, I want you to flip the club back over. We're gonna hold it like a golf club again. And we're gonna make that same motion, holding the club in both hands, feeling like we're throwing the club towards the target. And this is starting to become very natural for many of you at this point. So you're starting to feel your core engage. Once again, I'll keep harping on that. We wanna feel the core engage, feel the body turn towards the target. Now, not once have I mentioned how much you should transfer your weight and when you should transfer your weight. As long as we're working on this sequence and other aspects, we can transfer that feel to the golf swing. So as you're working through this throwing motion, I want you to notice how this club starts to work down in a shallow fashion. I would never try to steepen my golf shaft and then somehow throw it towards my target. Again, this becomes very natural for me. So as you're getting better and better at that, what I want you to do is start to lower the height of your swing. So we're gonna bring it down a little bit with each swing. On each one, I still feel like I'm making that same motion. I'm not overthinking the transition. I'm just trying to make a motion towards my target until finally I have it down to the ground and I'm still making that same motion. Now here's a bonus tip. As you're doing this, try to keep your hands and arms relatively relaxed. The more you can relax your arms, the less you're likely to grab the club and start pulling on it. So that really forces me to engage my core to create this motion. And I recommend you think about that just a little bit. So more relaxed arms, more core engagement. That's really gonna help you through this. My final tip here is to start small. The last thing you want to go do is get out there and start making Bryson DeChambeau driver swings and trying to hit the ball really hard with this motion at first. For most of us, when we want to hit something hard, the first thing we do is clamp down with our hands and start to pull. And that's kind of the opposite, as you know now, of what we're trying to do here. So start small, try to hit it 50% of your normal distance at first, and slowly build up speed, and you'll start to notice that it actually becomes really easy to hit the ball a lot farther with more relaxed arms and more core engagement. So I'm going to try to demonstrate a little bit now. This is my 8-iron, which I normally hit about 160 yards. I'm going to try to hit it, less than 100 yards on this full swing. I'm going to make full range of motion, but I'm going to focus on that feel of trying to make sure I transition properly, try to make it a very natural feel. So if you need to go back and practice your throwing motion, if you need to make a few practice swings like this to the side of the ball, just to help you get the feel of that natural throwing motion. And I'm just gonna bring that into the ball. Again, I'm just gonna hit this softly, try to hit it about 90 yards. Good. What's funny about that is I tried to hit it 90, but it probably went about 120. And it's amazing what the proper sequencing can do for your distance. So this is a great drill for you. So with each ball, what I'm going to try to do is hit it just a hair further than the last one. I'm not going to strain at all. I'm going to make sure I have nice relaxed hands and arms. And I'm just going to try to make that proper motion in transition. Good. That actually is about the same distance as the last one. So I'm going to try to swing it a little bit faster, and what I'm going to do is engage the core a little bit more, keep my arms nice and relaxed, try to make that same motion. Cool. Hit one more. I'm going to try to hit this one full distance, using the same nice and relaxed feel. And actually, I hit that decent. I hit it a hair thin, and I felt myself get a little handsy. So I'm gonna hit one more. Try to make that throwing motion, natural transition. There it is. And there's my normal 160 distance.